length of the boundary between Mush and the park. So everything sort of to the east here is Mush and This is pretty much, you can see the height of the grass layer in this area, and it seems that this is pretty much what it is generally. There's going to be other areas probably closer to the river with a shorter grass sword, but obviously visibility is going to be, you know, a big factor. And it's obviously with stuff like this, unless it's burnt or knocked down, obviously there's limitation. But as Bruce pointed out earlier, it's really your specialized species that will be able to utilize this kind of environment. So species like your sable, your roan, and so on can actually get in here and make a living.
So is that good for them then? This level of cover?
No, it is for those species, for roan and sable. It's why they exist. You know, because it kind of the actual vegetation in this case is what is preventing your bulk grazers like your buffalo and your other more sort of water dependent species.
The typical stand of Miombo woodland, and it covers a significant portion of the reserve. It's in terms of grazing, it's got a low quality, and so it's not going to support large numbers of grazing herbivores, but it is critically important for the sable. Not so much for the roan, because the roan will occupy the contact between the Miombo and the Dambo, and in certain times of the year moving down into the Dambo, because they've got a larger body size, so they require a higher volume of intake. But yeah, so you're gonna find your low density specialist herbivores in this type of environment. Actually, what's happened here is they put a road across a Dambo, so it effectively acts as a dam wall. And in the rainy season the water backs up. And where those, I suppose you can't see now, but where those wattle cranes are feeding is underwater in the rainy season. And it's changed the structure of the herbaceous layer because it's seasonally inundated, making it into a more palatable grass sward. But this is not common on the reserve.
So this is just to give you an indication of what can happen after a burn here, where the fire moves through the grass sward, and it's basically only the leafy material on the grass sward that actually gets burnt, and this the thicker stems of the grass still remain. So what you're looking at here, it doesn't even look like it's actually been burnt, but it has. So even after a burn, visibility and accessibility to herbivores can be a bit of an issue, and one can only hope that with new growth coming through here, that animals moving in here, just the physical action of that would actually knock your coarser material down and potentially open up. But you're going to have much bigger larger herds of animals to be able to achieve that. So I think it's just important to understand that fire is not actually going to give you a clean burn, and that obviously it'll depend on the time of year as well that it's burnt. So where the material is still has some moisture in it, you're going to end up with this scenario.
So we can see quite a strong contrast between the Dambo grassland and that around the termite mound. You can see a lot more animal activity closer to the termite mound because the quality of the forage is higher. The termites bring up nutriment from the subsurface, and it's a slightly drier environment, so the grass doesn't grow out as much. So you can actually see a very strong contrast. So what we've got here is a different type of vegetation, and in the EIA it was classified as a terminalia woodland. It's got a slightly higher clay content, maybe a higher silt component, and we can see that the herbaceous layer is more productive. We can visibly see signs of game, and it would be interesting to see the extent, what percentage of the reserve it covers. But yeah, it's more promising in terms of game numbers than the typical stock Miombo.
Yeah, and you got your predator, all your predator signs here as well.
Yeah. Did you see hyena there?
Yeah,
Hello guys. That's the one on the right, eh?
Yeah, the majority of the game out here is
Very tame.
very tame, used to vehicles. So quite nice to walk.
Okay.
The lines.
It's much bigger than about that.
What nonsense are you waffling now?
I'm just saying that the water quality is probably so good that it probably doesn't conduct electricity, whereas something like the Recce River, it's got a conductivity reading of 800. This would be naught, and what it means is that the insect life is completely intact in this river, and as a result the fish populations are also intact. Basically why the fishing is so good, and why the crocodiles are so ginormous. Crocodiles are apparently huge here. It's very well known for the size of its crocodiles.
So this is the Kafue River, but it's not. This is the main channel, but actually it's not the only channel. This across the water here is an island. So there's a channel or channels beyond this, and then what we're looking at here is the hunting camp, and I think you can see the size of the trees here. It really is beautiful. There's some really beautiful trees in here, and quite a few different species as well. So it's, in our minds, it's pretty spectacular.
First of all, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but also we appear to have a different type of dambo on the alluviums that were laid down by the Kafue. You can see that the grass is a lot less robust, meaning that it's going to offer better type of food for grazing ruminants like buffalo.
Just looking at the differences between the areas that we looked at earlier, in the Miombo and Brachystegia woodland areas, compared to this, which is right along the edge of the Kafue, these two, to try and turn the Miombo Brachystegia woodland areas into anything better than they already are is kind of not really achievable, and really all you're going to do is serve to destroy what you have there, which has its own beauty. But from a productivity point of view, there's not a lot more that you can do, and that is where your sable and your roan and your Liechtenstein hartebeest are gonna be. These areas are as good as they're gonna be, and really there's absolutely nothing that you'd want to do to change them. They're productive from a hunting point of view, bow hunting with the puku and impala and so on around here. It's absolutely perfect.
That I've decided I'm going to be Mama's thumb on this.
These redwoods have got character. Look at the character in that tree.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Stunning.
I think it's a red-billed spurfowl.
Let's see. This is new.
Yeah.
Juvenile, eh?
No, it's a yellow ball. Okay, there you go.
Abundance of puku along this sort of dammer stretch along the edge of the Kafuyu. And as you can see here, I'm literally standing about 50 yards from
So this is a campsite that's one of the campsites on the Kafuri. It's got an elevated position and it gives you a very nice peaceful feeling. The river's stunning and I think there's a lot of potential along the river for some really nice campsites or house sites. One of the things is the sound of the moving water, the kind of cool feeling that it gives you. This particular site has been opened up quite a lot, so there aren't many big trees in that, but I think elsewhere you'll find a more pristine site that probably would serve better. But it does give you an indication that there would be some very good camp or lodge sites and house sites along the Kafui. You could have the river on one side, and then you could have the hydromorphic grasslands with the game on the other.
Yeah, so that you've got the puku and so you got the wildlife and there's a whole bunch of puku right there now.
Yeah.
Looking through there, but then you've got this river around this side. I mean, it really is. You could end up with the elephant in the Sazigium there across, actually on the islands and that in the braided channel. It really is beautiful.
And then you've also got that riverine forest. Look at those enormous trees up there.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm just thinking, looking at potential sites for either lodge or house sites. You've got elevated area up here where this existing camp is. But when you look at the potential, if there was a possibility of securing something across the river in the GMA, whereby you're now able to build something looking south and east, which would look down these areas where you're going to have probably puku and impala pretty much all day long. You've got the beauty of the braided channels here with this water. It really is spectacular. And of course, if you were to build across the river, there's also the possibility of maybe putting a wooden kind of drawbridge type crossing point on here, which would be very aesthetically pleasing as well. So I think there's a lot of possibilities and options with the river. I mean, the sites we've got up here, some of them are slightly devoid of trees, but I think, if we look hard enough, you're going to find something that would be really spectacular. The thing that worries me a little bit is the lack of,
So we're just upstream from the Delay camp, and we've just seen all of these really beautiful Diospyros trees, and then also there's another leadwood on the left here, the one with the thistle green leaves. You just see the size of them. I think there's a brilliant place for fishing. These nice, slightly more slow-moving water, a bit of rock structure, a bit of overhanging trees. I'm sure you'll catch straight from the bank here. Not much of a place to cast though.
We're just looking at the hills on the other side of the river, as in light of doing something with the GMA and possibly developing lodge or house sites on the raised ground, looking down over the river, which is these hills, with these plains out the front, which are just which will have the puku and impala and hopefully other wildlife in them.
It's early morning at Kolongolova camp, which is situated on the Kafui, about midway along its length in the property. A very stunning location. Mist rising off the water. We can hear Shallows Lowries and Ross's Lowries in the riverine forest on the 5 kilometer or the large island in front of us. We've seen otters in the water. We can hear hippos. We heard lions last night and hyenas as well. So all in all, a very nice campsite with a great potential.
Where are you taking us, Darryl? Where are you taking us?
This is pool over here. Pool number 8 island. There's an island area, beautiful sand, white sand, where the hippo and the crocodile are sunbathing. Probably right now they'll be there on the bank.
So we're about 3 kilometers downstream from the western boundary of Mush itself, in this area of 50,000 hectares that Darryl has been managing. And we've just taken a drive through some really beautiful country, and we've landed up in this rocky terrain where the water is crystal clear. Pod of hippo just up here, and the crocodiles apparently come out here fairly frequently. I think it's really stunning from a game viewing point of view. It's fairly open compared to some of the other bits we've seen. And the river with all of these rocks, it's incredibly pretty down here.
It's very beautiful, I have to say. There's actually, it's pretty varied. Like here now, you've got elevation on this side of the river. This is an island. So, I mean, it's just, there's so much river and so many different opportunities and possibilities. So, it really is amazing. Oh, here you've got deep water, there's probably fishing opportunities. Pot of hippo here.
And action.
Okay, this is the high water mark right there, about there. So it fluctuates quite significantly.
What I would be interested to know is whether the species composition changes with the changes that we see in the physical characteristics of the river. Further up, where we had lunch, the river is a lot shallower and there are less rocks midstream, and possibly here you have a different fish assemblage as to what we have there.
Okay, this dambo here, Darryl's just telling us that he feels that there's potential for a dam site. I think there's one on here currently, which we'll have a look at. but he feels that there's potential here for a much bigger dam site. So that's another option. The only issue with it is that it has connectivity to the main river, and if it were to be stocked with species such as largemouth bass, there's the potential for them to get into the Kafue system. Do you know if there's anything like that in the system already?
Sorry, I wasn't listening to
Like largemouth bass, for example. Are there any? They're not in the Kafue, eh?
What's that?
Largemouth bass.
No, not it. And jumping off, and then as the trucks left, jumping back on, and they shot a hell of a lot of my sable. Huh?
Okay, coming through.
So I think this here is an existing house site, but actually it's ideally sited on the river, which, as you can see, would ultimately be a very spectacular lodge site or house site, with these beautiful views over these plains. You can see with the elephant, there's Sitatunga out here that you'll be able to see. We've actually got one visual right now, and there's full of recce, and I have no doubt that given time and protection, both here and with the potential hot spring up at the top there, where you can see the river there, there's going to be, it'll provide some spectacular viewing. You know, if you look at the river, the character of the river here is so much different. It seems to be much calmer. You don't see the actual flow of water as much here. So again, we've just seen so much diversity in the river itself. Let's go and have a look at the Sitatunga.
That's right, relax.
You can see the proximity to the river here. Just in front of us here, we've got this massive open kind of flow, which is the site that Darryl was talking about, for the potential dam site that potentially would push back about 8 kilometers. Apparently, historically, this was red lechwe habitat. So the existing habitat here is suitable for red lechwe, so it would be one thing to consider if a dam site were to be constructed, that we would be flooding or inundating probably the only suitable red lechwe habitat.
Are you ready?
Okay, this, what we're looking at here is an artificial impoundment. Behind us here there's a low wall which has been pushed out. So where the water is here is where all the soil has been excavated and used to create a dam wall across this fairly large dambo. The concern that we have with doing this is that these areas are where your roan and your sable essentially hang out, and they're here because there's no permanent water. As soon as you allow or you create permanent water like this in these areas, then your larger herding species like buffalo, for example, can access here, and that brings in the predators. It also introduces disease and so on, and basically what ends up happening is you lose your sable and your roan. So you do have to be careful doing stuff like this, creating artificial water like this, and obviously as a result of the water being here, you will change the aesthetics of this area. So it's just something else to consider. There are areas maybe where you would be able to do some of this, but you need to understand what you will lose as a result of that. Okay, this here is what you call a Jesse bush thicket. And it's interesting in that it's about 13 kilometers long by about 2 kilometers wide. So it's a very significant habitat here, and it's where we find blue duiker, and there's no doubt that kudu are also going to be an important part of the species in this community. So it's actually just adds another element of diversity to the system.
We've come up away from the Kafui about 8 kilometers to where the hot spring is. This water is really hot, you can see by the steam coming off the water and the very strong sodic smell. And it's a very important area for wildlife. There's really good grazing in this area. Also, you can see from all the tracks, a lot of animals come and utilize the water when it's cooled down a bit.
We're at the Piamanzi hot springs, and when the rainy season comes and the Kafui River fills up, we're able to come the 8 kilometers from the Kafui River to here and actually stop just above where I'm pointing, where the hot springs are, and I can put my feet out of the boat and feel the hot water coming from the hot springs.
So we're on the river about half a mile up from Daryl's house. This section of the river, it's really wide, moderately deep, and you can see on the different banks we've got different vegetation types on both sides. But even here we've seen game on both sides. You can fish anywhere in the river, but your best opportunities are fishing near the edge. A lot of the fish hide in the structure there, where they ambush little fingerlings and things like that. So,
do you like it?
I think it's awesome. I mean, the views, and the fishing is fantastic. You're never a dull moment. So we'll see now when we throw a line in.
How does the character of the river change from what we're on now throughout the course of the property?
So this bit that we're on now is most probably about 6 to 7 kilometers long, very wide and easily navigable. As we go down from Daryl's house, there are a couple of rocky ridges that run through the river. Although it seems like this, you got to know where those ridges are. Until you get down to the second last camp, it breaks up into channels, and the channels spread the water out, so depth is an issue, and getting through the channels with a big boat at the wrong time of year, it was going to be quite difficult. And then there's some rapids right at the bottom.
You like it though?
Yeah, I think it's a nice. That part of the river is the nicest for me. I really like it down there, but it's not easy in a big boat. You've got to take a small boat.
Cool.
Okay, this is farm 160A. It's about 3,000 hectares. and there's a possibility of adding this area. And from the footage we've just seen, this area would be pretty good for browsers, so eland and kudu, so it could be quite important from that point of view if incorporated into the greater area.